What's going on YouTube? Welcome to another video. Joining me here for another upper body bench workout. And bench is moving as well as it always has. I don't know what else to say there, to be honest. It's just moving in the way that it should. Keeping form, locked down, nice and consistent, straight bar path. And that's the name of the game. Recreate that same form over and over again, increase the weight, kind of go from there. And bench has always been something I think a lot of people get injured on and then decide to take some time away from. You just have to be careful, find your tempo, and then also nice and controlled. So again, with benching and like squatting, you've got appendage lengths that are going to affect your range of motion. So somebody built like me, just no torso, sort of long arms, you got to kind of find your happy medium to where you can touch your chest and power through. I have experimented with going a little bit too wide, and it has caused shoulder issues, which a lot of people are going to develop when they bench or try to progress the bench, whether it is going too wide or just flaring the elbows too much. But there's also like an over flare and over tuck, so you got to be careful. So like anything else, it's good to have like a standard baseline, but then also make your custom changes to the workout too. So what I like to say is use form of other people as an example, and then try to use those same principles to then apply to your own body. So just try to make sure you can stay tight, keep that upper back retracted, chest up, and kind of go from there. And then same thing with incline dumbbell press. Again, your range of motion and balance are going to be a little bit different here, but the movement is essentially the same. I don't know why I naturally do these twists in here. For some reason, when I do dumbbells, I just do. It just feels natural to me, so I do it. And I just kind of, whatever range of motion your body feels natural with, and you'll feel resistance and something doesn't feel right when you're working in a range of motion you shouldn't be, and your body will kind of give you feedback. You just have to be careful. That's why you want to start lighter than you normally would when you're first learning a movement. Go slow, learn little nuances, and kind of go from there. So you'll notice people who are pretty seasoned and have been doing a movement for a long time, the way that they carry themselves in a movement, there's a confidence to it. Very little shakiness unless it's like a new PR or weight or whatever. But majority of people, it's just going to take time, build those motor patterns, and then you can start progressing weight. So currently right now though, like the OHP, it did take me some time to come back after the bicep tendon tear, and a lot of that is just there's one less connection between my shoulder, bicep, and the bone than there was before. So range of motion changed a bit, and there's really nothing you can do. We've already made those decisions that led to the tear, so you just got to work around them. And so for me, I went really slow with the overhead press. And again, I've never had the greatest shoulder mobility. Like I said, I'm just built really weird. Big lats, so it's very hard to get past a certain range of motion. There is a give and take to building muscle into certain ways though, and so you kind of have to mitigate and work around it, and so stretch and do all the other maintenance stuff to kind of go from there. So but for me, it's always been about consistency. It's always been about getting everything stronger, and whatever insertions and connections your body has, those aren't going to change unless you suffer a catastrophic injury. For the most part, you can fill out those muscle bellies to your extent there, and basically that's how all that ends up. Transitioning to the lower body day, and again, we're doing the same old, same old, same old. Not much has changed besides just adding weight. And again, find those movements that work for you, the ones that you can progress on, and then simply progress on them. You don't need to do every leg machine, every barbell movement in the gym. Just find the ones that work for you and go from there. And that's something that I had to learn. When you first start coming up and trying to get strong, and you start watching people significantly stronger than you try to emulate their movements, and what you don't understand is they are performing movements in the way that are best for them. It's not always going to work for you. Their accessories are not always going to work for you, and that's one of the hardest things that you have to learn, is you'll try to emulate their movements, their accessories, thinking it's going to give you the same carryover, and that's very rarely what actually happens. What it is an example of is being able to understand why they're doing certain exercises for certain weaknesses. You know, a good example for myself is I have a lockout issue when I bench press and when I deadlift. And a lot of that is just from having the longer arms. So longer arms allow me to get to the deadlift, you know, pretty easily. I can pull foot pretty fast from the floor. But with a shorter torso, there's less reinforcement from the core to lock out the deadlift. So once my torso is no longer in contact with my hips and lower body, that's when that struggle comes. With the bench press, when I'm locking out, it's usually a tricep thing. Just that long range of motion with my legs, and it's pretty difficult to go from there. So you have to work around that. Some ways to work around that or to practice the lockout work, obviously. You know, usually people will tell you rack pulls or deadlifts off the floor, usually on bands or some sort of elevated surface, or even just doing block pulls to kind of focus on that movement. That's not always the case. So you have to figure out what works for you, because for me, a lot of those deadlift accessories do not work because I'm not starting from the floor. I'm not doing the full movement. In order to get better at a movement, you have to do the full one. So if you build strength at lockout or overload at lockout, doesn't mean anything because you're expending energy in the deadlift coming off the floor. So by the time you get to that sticking point, you've already depleted yourself of energy. So I found the best way to do it was to simply, you know, just get stronger at the deadlift, be more ideal with my form, and try to manipulate things so that you can get a stronger lockout. The strength is there, it's just a mechanic function of getting the hips through, and that's always been something strong for me. So here, I missed that deadlift. That was kind of rough. Just couldn't get my hips through there. I kind of lost it, kind of what I was talking about before, where, you know, you'll pull the bar off the ground and then you just simply can't get your hips through because of, you know, the little speed bump at the top. And I found that is exacerbated with the belt and stuff too, though. So again, these little nuances you're not going to find out until you start pushing and, you know, exposing those weaknesses, and it's going to take a certain number of reps or weight to get there to be able to address that. So the whole point is work out in a function that's best for your body. You know, work through those sticking points and kind of go from there. Some people are going to have an easier time doing stuff though. Like for me, leg pressing or doing machines has always been relatively easy. If I can eliminate the balance proportion of a lift that you would get from, you know, like a free weight or whatever, I can put all that effort and energy into moving weight and it moves pretty well. Now you add in the balance portion, and most of my focus is on making sure I don't keel over and collapse. So it all depends on what your, you know, strengths and weaknesses are, and you got to work around them. So I'm actually finding now that doing less deadlift work is actually more beneficial for my long-term pulling. Obviously, the more work you do, more calories you burn, the more muscle you're going to build. Obviously, I can transition that over into my training with the hypertrophy stuff. So the quote unquote fluff and pump, the stuff here where you're just doing reps on reps, that is a good addition to the heavy lifting. Obviously, the higher intensity you work at, the more reps you do, the more likely of injury, just from the need to be stable and the need to be healthy in those movements. You just have to figure out, you know, exactly what your goals and stuff are, though. And your body will let you know. You'll feel more sore, you won't be able to perform, and it's going to tell you, okay, we need to reevaluate here. So literally just listening to your body, and, you know, using other people that are stronger than you as a guidance to understand the principles, their form, to get to where they're at, and that will put you on the path. But you're going to have to hold yourself accountable. You're going to have to use your head to make conjectures and to fix problems that you may see. So another good example of this is the barbell row. When I first started doing barbell rows, I did them in the traditional bent over sense with bodybuilders. I did not like that. So I found that it's better for me to row from the floor. I can get a better contraction, and it's a little bit more comfortable for me to do more reps over long term, and I don't need a belt or anything like that. So these naturally transitioned into more power, a little bit of momentum rows, and that's always been something I've done. I like the power off the floor. This is a strong position for me. You'll notice when I deadlift, I'm super fast off the floor, and the issue seems to arise when my torso is no longer parallel with the floor. And so that's why I am, able to pull the way I am and then hit that sticking point that I am as well too. So again, just work around your weaknesses and find solutions to the issues that you have and kind of go from there. And keep doing that over and over again, and you'll start adding poundages to the bar, and then you'll start adding muscle to your frame. But also listen to your body. If there are days where you're coming in, you're not feeling too hot, drop down the intensity. Do lesser weight, more reps, or take that day as a lower intensity day. And that's what you're learning in training. You're learning that you could always do more, or you could always be more efficient. You can do a lot of light reps, lightweight stuff, and just pump a lot of that out. It's not really going to get you anywhere. You're not taxing your body in a way that you're exposing those weaknesses. And so when you can expose those weaknesses, you can get stronger with those weaknesses, which makes you even stronger at your benefits and your advantages and stuff like that too. So when it comes to training, again, you're testing yourself to seeing what works, modifying things to make them feel better for you, and going from there. Sometimes that can look like doing more weight. Okay, cool. The set of 10 I did today felt really easy compared to last week. Let's add a little bit more weight and just keep challenging yourself, rinse and repeat, and going from there. Adding that poundage over time is what's going to build muscle, keep you strong, and go from there. But I guess I'll say it like this. You don't always need to be challenging yourself, but you at least need to be within a baseline and then surpassing that baseline. Not every week has to be a PR week. Sometimes just doing weight over a certain part of a block or a training cycle and getting more efficient from like a technical standpoint when it comes to form, or even just a longevity sake, being able to do similar workouts with less rest is a good sign of progressive overload too. So there's so many things you can do. You just have to decide what your goals are. And for me, it's always been strength. It's always going to be strength. So I'm going to prioritize that. I like adding poundages to everything that I'm doing. But again, you have to go at the pace that your body allows. Not everyone's going to recover in the same way. And people are going to recover on different lifts quicker than other people are. For back and stuff, I recover pretty quickly. Leg days are a little bit more taxing for me. And then upper body, I can recover pretty well from too. So it just depends on how your system and body works. So utilize that how you will, space out your days how you will, give yourself more rest, and go from there. For most people, your squat and your deadlift are going to be your most taxing, so naturally are going to require the most amount of rest, simply because full body movement, you can move more overall weight, and it's just gonna tax the system in that same way too. So use what you get from training. Not every session is an experimental session, but I do learn a little bit more about myself in a non-philosophical way, like what my body can handle, what grip to grip on or stuff like that. So use what you are learning, get better, and do more than last time. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching the latest video. If you want to help support the channel, I actually own my own wet shaving and grooming e-commerce website where everything's handmade by me. It's www.apexsoaps.com, and you can get a 10% off code using wet shaver. We've got some cool scents here. We've got some Coca-Cola scents, a horchata scent, traditional barbershop, just some really cool stuff. And you can purchase samples or you can buy the whole set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email. Be quick to respond. Thanks for watching.